Oh, this is Chris Ransom. Another update, a YouTube video. Haven't made one in a while. Have been busy coding my website like crazy, but NHL free agency started today. I just wanted to do a free agency recap. We're not going to do a whole free agency recap right now, but I might do something on Spreecast tomorrow before the Pirates game that I plan on attending. But you look at free agency, the main topic I'd like to address today is the Florida Panthers general manager, Dave Tallon. Before he joined the Panthers, he worked with the Chicago Blackhawks as the general manager. He drafted Jonathan Toews, he drafted Patrick Kane, and after he won his first Stanley Cup, the Panthers made him a substantial offer and said, "Listen, we want you to come to Florida and turn this team into a winner. We'll offer you the money, the babes on South Beach. Heck, we'll even give you a VIP key to LeBron James' crib." And they dealed, and they pimped Tallon into leaving the Chicago Blackhawks for the Florida Panthers. And you look at how that transaction came out. The Chicago Blackhawks get another cup without Tallon, and Tallon, he's made some picks, but you get Eric Goodbranson, who looked like a bust last year. Less than 10 points, 30th in penalty killing, sluggish defensive play, but he's coming back. So maybe there's something to this. Another selection, you got rid of your guy that was like second on the team in points last year. He's going to Montreal to play for the Canadiens on defense. But that's not the point. You overpaid for Nikolai Hobby-Bulin in Chicago, and you traded for Roberto Luongo because you were desperate at goal. He had no defensive identity, no penalty killing. So you figure, let's bring a keeper in, and you got Luongo. So what's the plan now? Well, you've had a number one defenseman on your roster in Brian Campbell, one of the better number one defensemen in the league. FYI, Campbell did win a Stanley Cup with the 2010 Chicago Blackhawks team that you managed, and you brought this guy on board. So you bring in Willie Mitchell of the LA Kings as a number two defenseman who won a Stanley Cup with the Kings. He's an awesome penalty killer, premier enforcer on the blue line. And now you've got Dmitry Kulikov, who was a line one wingmate with Brian Campbell last year. He'll get demoted to a line two role that much suits him better. He'll get better as a result, and Willie Mitchell will bring some pop and motivation. These guys will be focused on penalty killing and making things happen on the power play. So I like the idea of having an offensive defenseman like Brent Seabrook and a penalty killer like Willie Mitchell complementing each other on the first line. Eric Goodbranson, he's not a number 3 or number 4 defenseman. He's a number 4 defenseman, and Goodbranson will be playing next to Kulikov. They were both first-round draft choices at defense, so I like that addition. The third line will feature Alex Petrovic, the 2010 second-round draft pick. You got Goodbranson in the first round of the 2010 NHL draft, and you took Petrovic in the second round. And finally, that second-round draft choice at defense has blossomed, and he'll be a number 5 defenseman, with Aaron Ekblad being the number 6 defenseman to round out the roster. And at this point, you're kind of asking yourself, okay, Ekblad's our number 6 defenseman, and he's going to have to earn his supper and work his way up the depth chart. And if we don't bring him up to Florida right away, the fans are going to get pissed, and there's going to be a demand. But if you're going to make this guy your number 6 defenseman, maybe you should send him back to Barrie, because every rookie has a 3-year contract that is a two-way contract, meaning the team can send the player to the AHL or the minors if they screw up and become a bust in the NHL. That's not going to happen with Aaron Ekblad. He's just too good. My issue is, why rush your way into that 3-way contract if you're going to make Ekblad your number 6 defenseman? Because the logic here is, these 3-year contracts go by fast, and if you don't bring Ekblad up to the NHL right away, and you return him to Barrie, you still have all 3 years on Ekblad's rookie contract, and you keep him in the juniors for another year to develop, and then you bring him up in a year from now. But regardless of what the Panthers do with the Aaron Ekblad situation, he can come in and play that number 6 role as a line 3 defenseman. I think he's capable of surpassing Kulikov and Petrovic on the depth chart by the end of the season. But regardless, you bring in that competition for good Branson and Petrovic. You let those 2010 draft choices know that Ekblad's the number 1 pick in the draft, and he's coming for your jobs if you don't step your game up. So Florida, they've found their 6th defenseman. They have the goalie in Luongo. So you have your defenseman, you have your goalie, and that's huge. That's core. Because last year, Ed Jovanowski, a line 3 defenseman, was the captain of the roster, and that really altered the team chemistry and forced you to make some pieces on the transition. But you've got your defense in place, you've got the goalie in place, and you look at some of the other moves the Florida Panthers made. Line 1 for the Florida Panthers is going to consist of Dave Bolland at left wing. He's a center, but he'll probably move to left wing since he's a two-way forward. Jussi Jokinen will play center. He led the Pittsburgh Penguins in goals scored during the playoffs, and he's going to be your line 1 center. That's the guy you've decided to invest in. And then Sean Thornton's going to be your right winger. That's going to be your first line. Those free agents, how those free agents gel on the offensive side of the puck is going to go a long way in determining whether the Florida Panthers are for real or whether this team is a bunch of fakers. The point is, the Panthers, they finally got the defense, the team chemistry, the logistics down. They've put 6 defensemen in place to help Roberto Luongo out, and how these offensive players gel together in terms of team chemistry is going to influence how well Florida does, because I think they have the defense and the goaltending to make a 1 or 2 year run at the Lord Stanley, and they have to do it within these next 2 years if Bolin wants to keep his job. Second line of offense is going to feature Derek McKenzie at center. You're going to have some other guys Derek McKenzie will not play center. Correction, Alexander Barkov, your 2013 first-round draft choice, will play center behind Jussi Jokinen. Free agent Derek McKenzie will play right wing probably, or Jimmy Hayes. Brad Boyd, Sean Bergenheim will probably play left wing, and Derek McKenzie will play right wing. You look at the third line, it'll feature Derek McKenzie, it'll feature Huberdeau, and it'll feature Brad and Boys. So that'll be your third line. Second line could feature Scotty Upshaw or some of these other guys, but you have 3 quality lines of forwards. You have an excellent defense, and you have Luongo. While he's not the elite, premier, can't-miss, surefire goaltender he was in Vancouver, he's declined from a top 5 goalie in the NHL that was 2 games away from winning the Stanley Cup to a bum, a borderline starter, a great guy, but he's not the guy that you want long-term, and he is expendable to some extent over some of the other goaltenders, but you gave him better defense than he had in Vancouver. He did have a good defense the year they made the Stanley Cup, and they had the penalty killing, and he'll have a similar defense to work with within the Florida Panthers organization, but these offensive guys are going to dictate a lot. You're going to need more than defense and goaltending from Luongo to get to the playoffs, which is why my prediction to peg the Panthers to move up from the first pick to the 10th pick in the 2015 NHL draft looks pretty smart right now on paper. But there's a lot that could happen, and you brought in defense, you brought in the goaltending by bringing in the tenacious penalty killer, Willie Mitchell, by putting Ekblad in as that number 6 center, where it's a privilege. You're the number 1 pick. Don't screw this up, or we'll send you back to Barrie for another year of development. They'll still have 3 years left under our contract. We can pimp you if we want to because we're the Florida Panthers, and the Panthers have it all set up so that the defense and the goaltending's set in stone. And really it comes down to whether these offensive guys and forwards gel, because the Florida Panthers have 3 lines of quality forwards. You've got that depth. You've got players, because the way they play the game will dictate the overall talent on the roster. So I just wanted to point that out. And those guys have to set the tempo. Boland, Jokinen, and Thornton, your free agents that you signed today, those are the guys that are going to determine whether Dave Tallon gets to keep his job as the Florida Panthers GM or whether the Blackhawks look like geniuses for continue to make things happen without him. Because even though Boland did a good job, you have to credit the Chicago's other GM. This is a magazine from the 2011 draft, Stan Bowman. And I know, this is from the 2011 NHL draft. The magazine cover's ripped up, but yes, Stan Boland did a good job in this 2011 draft. Remember Brandon Saad? He was supposed to be a top 15 pick, but he fell to the second round. Blackhawks pounced on that, and they got a quality forward in Brandon Saad. Arguably biggest steal in this draft, because he came up to the Chicago Blackhawks and played with their organization right away. So, I mean, Dave Boland has been good, but Stan Bowman's been able to fill that void that Boland left when he left the Florida Panthers after winning a Stanley Cup with the Blackhawks. He leaves Chicago to go to the Florida Panthers, and Chicago was able to get one more cup without him, even though he drafted the core pieces in Taves and Kane before going to the Panthers. Chicago, we mentioned that already, but this is it, Boland. You have to do something with the Florida Panthers this year, or you're out, and the Panthers have to find a new GM that can make things happen, because you've been given ample time. There is an expectation, and anything less than the 10th worst record in the NHL, and you're out. You're out of a job, period. I have the Panthers projected to pick 10th in the 2015 mock, and I think they are going to make some improvements this year with all the additions they've made, but it's really going to be a long process. It's going to be interesting to see what this organization does, and we'll see. The Florida Panthers, can they turn it around in 2014, 2015? Probably not, but you have to love the ambition and direction Dave Boland is taking with this organization, with Luongo, with all the pieces they brought in. And people have been saying he's the NHL's version of Ron Gardenhire, because he's been with the Florida Panthers GM since 2010, and he hasn't made a playoff appearance or been fired. You can say what you want about Boland, but the Panthers GM had an outstanding free agency, outstanding draft, and this is it. They brought in Al Montoya as a backup to Luongo as well. So you have your pieces in place, and this is it, Florida. It's do or die for the Florida Panthers, and I think they have a shot of getting that 8th seed in the playoffs. If they can get by Detroit, Toronto, and they can make a case, I think they can get the 8th seed, but they have to get by the Washington Capitals, and I don't know if that's going to happen, because the Capitals got Matt Niskanen and Brooks Orpik from the Penguins, and they're basically saying, all right, Pittsburgh Penguins, we're going to overpay your defenseman, and we're going to stick it to Sidney Crosby, because we got John Carlson and this other guy that's pretty epic. Can't remember his name, but Alexander Green or something. But the Capitals have 3 lines of defensemen now. You've got Braden Holtby, and your offense is in place. So it's all up to Ovechkin from here in Washington, because I think it's going to come down to Florida or Washington for the final playoff spot. I know I had Detroit and Toronto ranked ahead of the Panthers, but after what I saw the Panthers do in free agency today, I think they are the 9th best team in the Eastern Conference, and if they can finish ahead of the Washington Capitals, they will get in the playoffs as an 8th seed. And that's not an 8th seed I want to face. Team's got a young defense. You've got Roberto Luongo, an experienced goaltender, and you've got 3 quality lines of forwards. And you're a number 1 seed like the Boston Bruins or the Pittsburgh Penguins or possibly even the New York Rangers from last year. And you got to deal with this Panthers team. They're an 8 seed. They barely got in. They fought their tail off. And wait, the Panthers would be a 4 seed because of the NHL playoff realignment. But still, this is a 4 seed I don't want to face right off the bat. And if they edged out the Capitals, they'd have that chip on their shoulder. Everybody would say Florida has no chance, and they could win a series or two. I don't think they'd get to the Cup this year, but if they kept the roster they currently have, they kept everybody on certain roles, I think they could get to the Cup next year and possibly win it because that roster is that stacked and at defense and goalie, and all you need is the offensive guys to step up. The guys you signed in free agency are going to dictate things, especially UC Okinen and Dan Boland. So Dave Boland is the guy that you signed, and the GM is Dale Tallon, not Boland. I keep mixing Boland up with Tallon, but Dale Tallon, it's your year, you're on the hot seat, and Florida Panthers brought you here to get a Stanley Cup to Florida, and you have a 2-year window of opportunity to make that happen with the amazing acquisitions you acquired. You built through the draft by getting some players and some defensemen, but you never had the goalie. Thomas Vokoun didn't seize the opportunity. Luongo has a chance to be that guy now, and you've got Luongo, the penalty killers on defense, the stability on the defensive side of the puck, and now it just comes down to play it forward. And you brought in an offensive-minded coach, so I like the additions the Florida Panthers made. It was a great free agency period for the Panthers, and this is going to be fun. Can't they beat out the Washington Capitals and claim that 8 seed? I have my doubts at this point, but we'll see. If they get the 8 seed, they're a team that's going to get hot and go on a run. And if the Capitals get the 8 seed or the 4 seed in that Eastern Conference, in either one of the 2 brackets, they could go on a run as well. Definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there as to who gets those top 8 seeds, and it's top 3 division finalists and then the 2 best wild cards instead of the top 8 overall seeds, which I think is stupid due to the NHL realignment. But hey, what can I say? Florida Panthers, if they get one of those final 2 wild cards, they will make a run, and I feel the same way about the Washington Capitals because the Bruins were a 1 seed and they barely got by. The Penguins were a 1 seed too in one of their brackets, and they barely got by as well. So, and both of those teams lost in the second round. So, I think a team like the Capitals or the Panthers with the right dynamic and the right pieces in place can get in as a 4 seed in this East, taking up one of the 2 wild cards and making things interesting. But yes, it is up to the Florida Panthers front office to make something happen this year. It's up to Tallon. Dale Tallon has to make something happen in Florida with the lineup he's been presented. Thanks for listening to this excessive rant about the Florida Panthers. Nearly 20 minutes. Should have done a recast instead of a YouTube video, but I did not think the video would be this long. Chris Ransom, Draft Utopia.